frustration that's taking place in our government. And in most cases, it's people that are within the space of government that will always blow a whistle. Be that as it may, now I'm getting to a point where when I receive these documents and I'm like, okay, but I'm worried about then priorities of the committee. And I get your frustration that you want to deal with RAF once and for all and afford an opportunity to both the CEO and the board to all state their case and bring evidence thereof, of whatever has taken place. But my worry is our priorities and the focus and things that we want to elevate, because constituting a full inquiry on an entity that's primarily focusing on less than 2% of the population. I mean, in terms of those that get affected by accidents, not necessarily their mandate. It's less than 2% people that get affected by accidents and they have to claim. Then we have people that get affected by service delivery everywhere, and they have been brought to us. Case in point, we were just recently in OR Tambo. Me and you, we agreed a lot in many things. We even brought people members of the public to come and tell us how rotten the government is, and services that don't get to the people, officials that do not implement the mandate, that do not perform, but money is leaving the coffers with a speed of an eye blink. And with those matters, the Speaker also again gave us some of the municipalities where there's serious concerns of maladministration, people do not get services, projects not being finalized, to a point where nothing is getting to the people. Now, for someone who's outside this committee, and we try to explain, we are now starting an inquiry on RAF when there is municipalities that do not perform at all. And with the example I just made is that what made things worse is the recent floods that befell the Eastern Cape, and in particular KSD again in OR Tambo, where the municipality could do zero, simply because they have absolutely no capacity to do anything. Not that that capacity was not in the plan. It was in the plan, paid for, but never materialized in terms of the actual equipment being there for the people to make use of. To a point where people were only saved 6-7 hours later because we're waiting for divers and equipment and everything. That was 6 hours away in Gqeberha, in Durban, and all of those things. So I'm trying to persuade you, Chair, to say, yes, there are matters at RAF footy. No one can ever argue with that. But in terms of the volume of the cases of people we see on a daily basis, I do not think it will be fair for us to have an inquiry based on an entity that's just servicing a few people. Yes, we will pay attention to it the best way we know how, but a priority of that nature, maybe if we were to be given an opportunity for all of us to say, which area should we prioritize in order for us to make an inquiry which is based on how our people are suffering out there, I wouldn't pick RAF as the most number one of them. Then number two is that The issue of the accounting standards, in the previous parliament, the issue was dealt with a lot. And RAF was cautioned and cautioned. And I remember very well when we started parliament in our first meeting, where we were getting to understand what each government institution, and in particular our wives as COPA, are going to assist us with first wife, second wife, and the third wife. It was AG, Treasury, and SIU. So when we met with our wives, as Tembu said, the first thing I asked our first wife was, there's a matter of RAF you people have to resolve, because we dealt with this issue. RAF is raising its own pertinent issues on the issue of accounting standards. And it's been made clear various times, Chair, and I agree with you. We cannot have a favorite that must not follow the law. The law is law. That goes without saying. But when there are issues within the scope of accountability and how the situation at RAF in particular, having been not an insurance, but money that's there sitting for whoever has an accident, which is not predetermined as well. We don't know how many accidents we'll have today. We don't know how many claims we'll have today. So if you have 1 million rand and then you have 5 million worth of accidents, there's nothing you can do. And that's what RAF has been saying. If we have 1 million and then there are claims that are above 5 million, and it's beyond their control. So in that spirit, I asked the first wife, have you now gone back to look at how best yourselves, RAF, ASB, and the executive, you can deal with this matter? Because ASB has been to Parliament to explain how can this matter be tackled, and they had the resolution on how it can be tackled. AG explained and said, yes, there can be a matter, but it's not their space. The space is ASB and the executive. And the executive also agreed that, okay, stop taking AG to court, now account, but let's engage the ASB so that it can formulate the standard which is suitable for you to account, and we don't have this matter. So this matter is a matter that has been canvassed a long time ago. And I don't think even after our inquiry we're going to resolve it, because the matter will always be there. Whether it's Collins Litswalo or it's Veronica Mente or it's Songe Zuzibi, if that one of the accounting standards is not corrected, it's not, the matter is not going to go away. We can have the inquiry, but in terms of accountability, we need to resolve a matter of how does RAF account? How does it budget? How does it use its income and expenditure? How does it document it? And that's what it is. Now, here is my other problem. The same AG comes to us and say, yes, with all these issues we have in terms of our 3 areas of audit, the financial statements, there's still a huge disagreement that these people do not comply with the accounting standards on how they are drafting the financial statements. Therefore, the financial statements are not drafted up to standards. Yes, we all agree, and that must be corrected. Secondly, on performance, they say this entity performed exceptionally well. From 180 days to 120 days, the backlog being dealt with, everything being dealt with, money has been saved. We all applaud, we are happy. It's AG telling us, the same Auditor General, telling us that the current management at RAF with the board have taken decisions that have saved the country so much money. Part of those are what happened when the what was that panel of lawyers term or contract ended. It was not renewed. became a big hullabaloo in the last parliament that no, it must be renewed. Those people were not saving RAF, but they were plummeting RAF into much deeper crisis because cases were prolonged to such a way that every time there is such a backlog of cases that must go to court because they are not finalized within 180 days. Now, the issue of 180 days is being dealt with. No one is going to court for that, for delaying claims. We are going to court for claims that have been there. Secondly, there are law firms that are there that have been taking money out of RAF because of what the work that they are doing and all of that. It was explained to us. It's millions, and then top 2 or 3 firms taking a lot of money out of RAF. And when the CEO dealt with that and had at some point had a press briefing, there was also inconsistencies in terms of how we deal with that matter. But be that as it may, when it was reported to us, like you are saying, we didn't dispute it. We agreed that, yeah, these firms now no longer have to find expression because the 180 days issue is not there and they must not do it. And we all agreed that the public must come and claim on their own. We all agreed that must have a drive that is to conscientize people how to claim, where to find RAF. They must avail offices closer to the people so that people do not have to fall victims of lawyers that go to them in hospitals the moment the accident happens. I think there is another syndicate that is operating in hospitals, and doctors and nurses, because you will be laying in hospital after an accident, then you get approached by some lawyer that you didn't invite. So to cut that and that corruption, because the same lawyers do not even give the people their own money, which was another shortcoming which RAF was not monitoring. Now, we agreed that those things must happen and RAF must tackle those things. What I'm struggling to understand is then where did the problem start, or where do we come in? Because we are now going to be remote controlling the movements of RAF and all of that. As far as inflation of those people who must execute the task in terms of whatever media coverage, what do you call it, those campaigns and all of that, that's something else which has to be dealt with. But if how it comes to be an inquiry, I'm struggling to understand that. The other thing we all agree that it must be corrected, which the inquiry is not going to resolve if that is not corrected, is the issue of the legislation in RAF and how it allows people to steal money from RAF. That includes the medical aid insurance companies that take our own money. After taking our money, they still go take money from RAF to pay the same person. It's the matter of hospitals that claim at RAF, is the matter of the lawyers as well. So there was a list we asked from RAF in the last meeting, a meeting before the last one. That meeting, I think it was March, which was sent to you. And in that we asked which are these hospitals and how much has been paid to them and why this space is not regulated, because the legislation must regulate. If their hospitals must claim, what are they claiming? Because Hospital A will claim for a toe 1 million. Hospital B will claim 100 rand for a toenail. And then my claim, True Lawyer 1, will be 1 million from RAF, but True Lawyer B, it will be 50,000 from RAF. So there has been that gray area as to how do we get different claims for same or rather similar accidents, but people get different claims of that. What's taking place now is the board and the CEO, as we have seen in the transport committee, transpiring there after our engagement. Unfortunately, myself and Skosana were not here. Then after our engagement, then Transport Committee takes over. Then there is a full-blown war between the CEO and the board. And that is informed by what the board did to the CEO and the CEO fighting back for his life with the board and all of those things. That also, I don't know how we're going to get involved, because the executive ultimately must deal with the board, must deal with RAF. And yes, we can get in terms of utilizing the constitution and the legislation on how the things should be done. But what is it that we would want to address in a war? There's a turf war between the CEO and the board. That goes without saying. And it cannot be resolved by us in the inquiry. I feel that the executive is failing and is not doing its job. The executive must deal with its mandate, and the executive must deal with the issues of RAF. That must not be given down to Scopa, that Scopa deal with these people for us. People must do the dirty things. It must not be Scopa who's going to be doing the dirty. We are not scared of doing dirty work. We'll do the dirty work, we'll fire people, we'll inform the communities of who is stealing where. But the executive must rise to the occasion and act where it has to act, the way it has to. If the CEO has to take them to court, or the board must take the CEO to court, they must do it there. They must not use us, because we have a bigger community to attend to, and that community is waiting for us.